Have you ever failed at something and your first thought is, are people going to think about me? And failure doesn't just hit your results, it hits your identity. And if you've ever made a leadership mistake that you can't stop replaying in your head, you'll understand Peter. After denying Jesus, Peter doesn't just feel guilty, he feels exposed. But what happens next is one of the most hope filled leadership moments in Scripture. Jesus doesn't discard Peter, he rebuilds him. Today, we're going to walk through the turning point that shame tries to steal from leaders. Hey, friends, thanks for joining me today on Leading with Bill. I'm Bill Martin, your personal leadership coach, and this is where biblical wisdom can transform your leadership and life. Today, we're in John chapter 21. The resurrection has happened, and Peter, a man carrying one of the heaviest moments of his life, is about to encounter Jesus again. Ready? Let's dive in. Here's where we find the disciples after the resurrection. Something is unsettled. It's unresolved. And so Peter does what discouraged leaders do. He goes back to what he knows. John 21, verse 3, Peter says, I'm going out to fish. This isn't just a fishing trip. This is regression. That's his comfort zone. It's his old identity. When shame shows up, that's exactly what leaders do. They pull back from their calling and retreat to what feels safe, what feels less exposed. And that's where Peter is. And Jesus is about to meet him there. They fish through the night and they catch nothing. Then early in the morning, Jesus stands on the shore, but the disciples don't recognize him yet. He calls out to them. Verse 5, friends, haven't you any fish? They answered, no. Verse 6, throw your net on the right side of the boat and you will find some. So they do. And the catch is so large, they can't even haul it in. Wow. Now, this should sound familiar. This echoes the moment in Luke 5 when Jesus first called Peter. He fished all night, caught nothing, threw the nets on the other side, had an overwhelming catch. Jesus is recreating that moment. This is intentional, and it reflects the care and compassion of Jesus. This is Jesus saying, I know who you are, and I'm still here. In verse 7, John says to Peter, it is the Lord. And Peter, he doesn't wait for the boat to reach shore. He doesn't hang back, calculating, well, how's the conversation going to go after what I did? So, in typical Peter fashion, he jumps in. He moves toward Jesus. This is not the behavior of a man who has given up. This is a man whose shame is real, but whose longing is stronger than his shame. The other disciples, they come in with the boat, and when they get to shore, we see in verse 9, Jesus has already made breakfast. When they landed, they saw a fire of burning coals there with fish on it and some bread. Let's not rush past this detail. Jesus, risen from the dead, is crouched over a fire, making breakfast for his friends. Before any difficult conversation, before any accountability moment, before he addresses what happened in that courtyard, he feeds them. Verse 12, Jesus said to them, come and have breakfast. And they eat together quietly around a fire. This is one of the most grace-filled scenes in all the New Testament. So here's our key takeaway. Restoration often starts with presence, not performance. Notice what Jesus does not do. He doesn't confront Peter the moment he gets out of the water. He doesn't open with, oh, well, let's talk about what happened. He doesn't ask Peter to prove himself or justify his actions. He makes him breakfast. He creates space where Peter is simply with Jesus. Warm, fed, known. And in that space, something begins to heal. As a leader, this is worth sitting with. When someone on your team has failed, or when you have failed, the instinct is often to jump immediately to accountability or correction. But sometimes what's needed first is simply presence, showing up, creating a space that says, you still belong, you matter. That's what Jesus models here. So, what do we do with this? Here's your one move this week. And it's simple, but it may be challenging. I want you to schedule 15 minutes of uninterrupted time and focus on Jesus, who he is to you, what he's done, and why you are grateful to him. Just sit still with him. Turn off your notifications, eliminate distractions, and simply enjoy his presence. Peter's story is one of the most honest in all of Scripture. He fails in a very visible way, and he feels it deeply. And then, in the quiet, around a fire, over breakfast, Jesus meets him exactly where he is. That's the God we serve. Not one who discards leaders when they stumble, one who rebuilds them right there on the shore in the place where they went when they didn't know what else to do. You know, shame says your failure is final. Grace says, no, I'm going to use this for God's glory. Don't miss next week. We're going to see what happens next to Peter. If this episode encouraged you, hit like and subscribe and share it with a leader in your life who needs encouragement. Friends, thanks for joining today on Leading with Bill. Remember, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and we'll see you next time.